In the midst of everything else that's been going on, whether it be COP26, MP corruption scandals, arguments, COVID, whatever, it's kind of been rather hard to keep track of what's going on in the Northern Ireland Protocol. In fact, things have almost gone quiet. So does this mean, then, that the whole furore is dying down? Or is this just the calm before the storm, as Boris Johnson composes himself for the next crisis? After all, you only want to deal with one crisis at a time, as opposed to dealing with multiple crises. So I thought I'd just recap a little bit where perhaps we are on the whole Northern Ireland Protocol issue. Try and get back a little bit to the fundamental understandings of what is going on. So let's start. What is the EU's position? Now, I'm not going to go into comprehensive detail on this at all. I will post a link in the video description below, which has been created by the Institute for Government, which has very helpfully explained all the conflict areas on the Northern Ireland Protocol and summarised them. But what I will say in a nice oversimplified way is that the EU position had very much been to defend the principles of the single market, but to offer up implementation compromises to the Northern Ireland Protocol. And the results of that is, according to the EU, that it would reduce the trade barriers between the mainland Great Britain and Northern Ireland by 80%. So, on paper, that looks pretty good. And that looks like a compromise. It's the start of an opening offer, rather, at the start of a negotiation. And so, of course, it is now the responsibility of the UK to respond to that. Now, as I've said before in previous videos, the UK have tried to preempt this sort of proposal by pretty much half-baked, nonsensical stuff in advance. So what really is the UK position? Well, the UK position is not very much, really. And that perhaps is part of the problem. The UK is only able to articulate that they are unhappy, but in terms of actual detail, not been very good. It's been rather lacking. So what could the UK say is the issue at hand? Well, they can point out to the massive decline in trade figures between mainland Great Britain and Northern Ireland. I suppose you could almost point out to the rather large trade increase between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland and highlight that as a problem. So, but it's hard to see what the UK is proposing as a genuine solution to this problem. And after all, it signed up to the protocol. It agreed to creating those custom checks that has created the decline in trade. So the UK has got to really analyse what the EU has proposed and come back. And we've not seen much of that. In fact, all the messaging really have been very much the appearance that the EU are the ones offering compromises. And the UK, whether from lack of communication or whether political incompetence or incoherence, is simply not offering much of a counter narrative back in terms of what it is counter proposing. So if this was a propaganda war with neutral parties, let's say neutral media observing, then the EU would most certainly be winning. But of course this isn't. And in that sort of scenario, the UK media will support the UK narrative and the EU media will support the EU narrative. So it's a bit hard to really get to the ground truth on these issues. But we are seeing a softening in tone. We're seeing less drama, we're seeing less strong statements. And it's interesting to try and dig into why that might be. Is that the UK becoming more conciliatory? Is that perhaps the UK having been chastened by the US into coming more towards the negotiation table? Or is this just the UK government waiting for the crisis to calm down before launching the next offensive by triggering Article 16? That may still be the position. We do not know. But today's developments have been a little bit interesting, and I thought it was rather definitely interesting that the BBC was talking about the Republic of Ireland Prime Minister, Michael Martin, in quite positive terms, actually. And a little short video, and I post a link to that in the video description as well. Now, what I've noticed that Michael Martin is doing, which is quite interesting, is that he is putting quite a lot of positive language there. Is that making him the deal maker? I don't know. I don't know what he's doing behind the scenes. But what does appear to me that he is doing is that he is chivying both sides along to come to an agreement. And when you put positive language out of, they're getting closer, we're nearly there, keep on going, that sort of thing, you're creating a certain positive pressure on the parties to reach an agreement. So that's what I'm seeing he is doing, which is quite good negotiation behaviour, actually. And you will see this in negotiations. When things are getting awkward, then the proper professional negotiators will try and stay positive and try and encourage things. And that creates a bit of a psychological will, as it were, to try and reach an agreement rather than to entrench in certain positions. So I'm seeing a lot of this language by Michael Martin. And the BBC seem to reference that he is an affable chap, and he's well liked by lots of people, including in the UK. So that seems to be quite a positive development, and that seems to show him up as a bit of a good guy in all of this. And it's very hard for there to be good guys in these sorts of negotiations when things start to get acrimonious. So take the positivity wherever you can find it. So what does this mean in terms of going forward? Is all the grandstanding over? Well, the reality is they've got to sit down and really go through the EU proposals, talk through them in technical depth, develop counter proposals or counter arguments and counter solutions, and then argue that out. That's essentially what needs to happen next. And I think the UK is in a very awkward negotiating position here, because the EU are the ones on the front foot with what are seen as credible proposals. So some of the arguments that the UK makes for justifying the triggering of Article 16 is, for example, the barriers to trade, whether that be to meat or move medicines from the mainland to Northern Ireland. But the EU have specifically put proposals forward tackling those issues. And so the UK government now needs to accept or rebut those proposals or counter-propose. So the problem is that if the UK goes down this route of triggering Article 16, for example, again, all the reasons of meat and medicine imports not being permitted, then basically it's going down the unilateral nuclear option of triggering Article 16, even though this is something the EU are already offering them. And we're not seeing any public narrative of the UK disputing what the EU has proposed. They're saying that is not good enough, it doesn't work because, whatever the reason may be. So I think it's interesting. It's hard to tell, because it could well be that UK and EU negotiations are going through those technical details, and at some point in the future will announce agreement on the way forward, a revised Northern Ireland Protocol, or implementing agreement, whatever it may be. Or they may wish to grandstand a bit more half and puff, and then possibly go all the way to triggering Article 16. But of course, we always have to look at what's the end goal, what's the end benefit, because you can't use Article 16 to abolish the whole protocol. You can only, on a proportionate basis, remove bits of it for the purpose of addressing that particular problem. So unless the UK develops a proper counter-narrative, then I think the UK will find itself exceedingly isolated. So they have to put forward something. Otherwise, what will happen is the EU will use this as a means to retaliate, one hope proportionately, but who knows, and they may start to specifically target things that really will hurt the UK government. What the EU will also do, and we've already seen this, I mentioned in the previous video, the EU is trying to win the propaganda war. And what that means is the EU has got the US on side. The EU may even have other various nations, not just the EU nations, on side as well. And so the UK goes ahead and triggers Article 16, even though the narrative is that the EU are the one offering up proposals and compromises. Then all the other nations that the UK wishes to negotiate free trade agreement with, for example, will take note of that and will perhaps listen to a quiet EU request to not be nice to the UK, shall we say, in order to drive through. And they wouldn't want to be either. You know, at the end of the day, if the UK is not perceived as a trusted partner when it comes to reaching agreements on treaties, then the other nations are going to change their stances and their behaviour as a consequence of that. So I'm hopeful that at this point the UK has realised it is in a precarious position and will sit down and quietly resolve the problems and allow the Northern Ireland Protocol to proceed in a revised state. But we will see, because this is all politics, and politics may not want to do rational and calm negotiation, and only time will tell where this goes. So I hope you found this little bit of a recap helpful. There's not a great deal of news to report on this, but I will keep watching this with interest.